Hello, and welcome to a hot, exciting new episode of Video Ditch. As always, I am Nick. Sam couldn't be here today due to circumstances beyond our control, but we are joined by one Massimo Gauthier, which I really hope I pronounced that right. As someone with a French lineage, I would kind of hope that sort of thing is just genetic, but if I did bungle it, let me know in the comments, I suppose. You may know him as the creative force that is responsible for your favorite game, you, the person watching this right now, Anton Blast. It is not an understatement to say that without him, the game would have never become anything and would have simply been a dream in Tony Grayson's mind, a twinkle in his eye as they thought and wondered, could this become something? If only I had the catalyst, the extreme force of will and mind and creativity to make it happen. But luckily, Massimo was there to fix everything and make it nice and good.
Make it good.
Make it good. Exactly.
Tony said, "Make it good." I don't know.
But that's not what this is about. This is about their upcoming new game, their upcoming new project, currently on Kickstarter, Diorama Break. And for those who don't know about Diorama Break is essentially what would happen if you, the humanoid, were able to look into a beautiful RPG settlement, see all your favorite characters and environments and everything going on, and you were able to take your mind and you were able to psychically link with that person. You were able to talk to them, tell them what you were thinking, how you were feeling, argue with them, tell them what to do, and see how they react to it. It's a one-to-one representation of what it would mean to be God and speak to your avatar. Essentially, it will give you that same exact feeling, that same exact fervor, and that same exact religious. What's the word when they dance around? You'll be like a whirling dervish, essentially. The gaming is equivalent to that, I imagine, and more. That's all going to be present within the game, and frankly, just really looking forward to seeing what happens with the final release. So Massimo, welcome very much.
Nice to be here.
Great.
Yeah, it's the first time I've done anything like this, so it's kind of exciting.
Really? Okay. Hopefully this is like a formative, welcoming, wonderful experience, and you're not scared off of the little interviewing thing forever. Or, maybe that could be good. This could be like a rare one-off. We're the only ones with it. But yeah, so getting into it, how exactly did you get into gaming? What was the start that made you get into all this stuff?
Oh my God. I mean, gaming in general.
Yeah. Just like a little baby chewing on a Game Boy Color and you accidentally press the button, or what happened?
Really, it's like almost as long as I can remember. I had some exposure to it. I think my first console was either the GBA or like the original Xbox. I remember we had an original Xbox, and that was like the first home console. And I must have been like 4 or 5 years old. I remember going to a friend's house, and they were playing like Spyro on the original Xbox. And that was like really one of my first exposures. And I must have been like 4 or 5 years old. Yeah. And then I think from the start, it was just always like the most fascinating thing. Like as a kid, I would say, I really like reading and I like video games.
Yeah. I guess like reading plus.
Well, it's sort of like the two ends. Right. In terms of like, okay, here's like the maximal stimulation. You have like the whole world in front of you, presented to you, and you're interacting with it, versus like reading, which was more like everything is like do it all yourself. And you like imagine everything in your head.
Right. Yeah. Everything is kind of laid out, especially with the voice acting now. So back then when you were younger, you didn't really have much interest in the like story heavy, text heavy stuff. It was all sort of.
No, I think like one of the first games I played was like Pokemon, which I kind of argued with my roommate a couple of days ago about like, is this a JRPG? But like it is a
JRPG.
Yeah. Like fairly central example of a JRPG. So like a lot of the early RPG stuff I played was Pokemon stuff, right? And not just the mainline games. Like Mystery Dungeon was like a big one. Where it's like that, probably one of the first games that I played that actually has a genuinely impressive story. And because the mainline Pokemon games, it's a nice fantasy, but
the story is
crazy plot going on,
garbage or secondary, I guess.
And I mean, what else? It was a lot of Nintendo growing up. Although we did have that original Xbox. Funnily enough, I played Halo. As a very young kid, but I probably was not old enough for it. It just happened to be one of the games we had, and it was like fantasy enough that I kind of got away with playing it. But but I don't think I was really the target demographic. A little later on, and it's funny because like I feel like a lot of the people who are big JRPG fans, they're like really into the golden era, right? Which is like late SNES, PS1, PS2 stuff.
The Squaresoft era.
Yeah, so like Final Fantasy VII, Chrono Trigger, but that was all before my time, right? So like I didn't grow up with that. I probably like the biggest JRPG I can remember that's like really like a core JRPG that I really loved when I was young, like 12, 13 was Xenoblade Chronicles on the Wii, like the original one.
Very solid, very solid one to like. Very good.
Yeah. So that was like my
13.
Yeah, that was like my big JRPG. And then I'm trying to think like what else. I'm sure stuff would come. I have played sort of later on through emulators. I did play like Chrono Trigger. But at that point it was sort of more like, okay, I need to get an education.
Your due diligence, kind of like the college course they make you watch Citizen Kane or something.
Yeah.
Not so much for pleasure. Yeah, so from those games that you played when you were a young kid, is there anything that outstanding that really you think is outstanding today that really lasts and is still worth checking out?
Oh, I mean, stuff I played as a kid. I mean, so like I play a lot of different genres. I mean, I think people might be interested in hearing about like narrative stuff, but like a lot of the things that kind of like formed my ideas about the best narrative games came later on. Like it was really like indie stuff. So I think from like the earlier time, like Wii stuff, I mean, like the Mario Galaxy remakes just came out, right? And that was like that. I definitely remember that as being like one of like the early things that really impressed me. Although I haven't played recently, I really couldn't say if it's been like outclassed at this point. But like obviously, most people will say all the Mario games stand the test of time, and I'd be inclined to agree.
So typing, wonderful game.
Yeah, like I mean, like I already mentioned Pokemon. Like I did play this later on, but I guess technically Cave Story came out around 2006. And I consider that like a very let's say formative game that like everybody should play, and it's free. Like,
it's the indie game.
Right. Yeah, it's the indie game, and I meet indie developers who haven't heard of Cave Story, and I'm like, wow,
the frauds. As soon as they say they haven't played Cave Story, just cut the conversation short and turn away. Don't even bother.
But I feel bad because like I'll mention it offhand as part of like some other point, and they'll be like, oh, what's that?
Did you mean Undertale?
Yeah.
Is that what you're trying to say? Are you trying to say Undertale?
Yeah, it's good that you mentioned Undertale because like Undertale is like, like so many people. There's like an Undertale reviewer that had a hilarious line that I relate to. That's like, Undertale is a co-author of my limbic system.
So formative.
Yeah. I mean, so like Undertale is definitely an example of like an important game. Just in turn, I mean, especially for like what I'm working on now. I wouldn't say, I mean, there's more for Diorama Break. There's like more direct inspirations. But I do feel like both playing Undertale and just reading people's analysis on like, okay, what is Undertale doing that's like interestingly different? That was very formative in terms of like, okay, here, like what can games do narratively that other mediums cannot?
It's unique with that player character connection and like games can provide.
Like a lot of like specific stuff too, right? Like it wasn't just vibes.
Yes.
Like it's the kind of thing where like games are very young, right? So like we don't have like a language for them, like in the way we do like a language of cinema.
Exactly. It's like I think Suda51 recently said that when movies first came out, people just thought they were essentially a mixed media sort of thing, a new form of art that didn't really consider its own genre. And games are the same way. The NES is kind of like the train coming directly at the screen sort of thing. It's all spectacle back then, and now people are really getting into what's possible with the medium, and I can tell these fantastic stories and do these amazing things.
Yeah. Like really. I think it's important that we try and build a foundation in terms of like, okay, here are the conventions of the medium. Like this is the stuff, like we don't have like a large library of things and techniques that are just like proven to work. And this is how you tell stories in games. Right. And that's not to say that like, we should have that. And then you should only tell stories in games this way. Right. And that's the playbook. And once we have that, games will be good. Right. But I think, even having a tradition at all, one, just kind of like raises the quality bar for works in general. And two, then, when you break from tradition, right? Like you can be more judicious in terms of like what you want to do differently in your product and how you want to be different in interesting ways, like rather than just like, well, we'll try this, we'll try that.
Right. Rather than just being purely experimental.
Yeah. A lot of game design discussion, like the way it's framed is often just like, yeah, we're just, out in this like murky sea of nobody really knows what they're doing and a lot of trial and error.
Yeah. So going from that and this sort of gestation period that gaming is as an art form, what is your philosophy when it comes to games? What are you trying to make, and what do you think is the most important thing when you are creating something?
So I think it depends on what I'd be working on. So like, I have a lot of ideas for different kinds of games, and there are different things I'd want to do with different games. Although I'll say it really kind of like boils down to two camps. So I think, we talk about like games as this very unified thing, but to me, like I've always felt like, okay, there's interactive storytelling, which really feels like almost its own thing, right? And then there are games which are like the much longer tradition, where it's like, like chess is a pretty pure game in that sense, right? And so like we have and the sort of interactive storytelling to me, like it feels closer. It's storytelling, right? So like it feels much closer to like other things we would traditionally consider art. Whereas like the very pure game stuff, it like is its own interesting thing. But I don't really like categorize it in my head as like similar to like an art form as a whole. Like it's more like the way like we talk about like beauty or light or like these elements that go into say a painting or a movie or whatever, but we don't think of like making something beautiful as like specifically its own specific form of art, right? In the same way, like I don't think like making something fun, right, or making something engaging, like it's something you can do artistic things with inside a medium such as like games writ large, right? But and that's sort of like how I think about like the very pure game aspect, like the pure game thing, right? And like you can make just a pure game and like have something interesting, but like I think what really elevates something as art is then like and you can do like the pure interactive storytelling, but like you can include a game and like tell a story through a game.
The vehicle, it's the vehicle for conveying what you're trying to say, for altering their emotions, for touching them.
Yeah. So that's and then there's, I guess, like a sort of third thing is like the sort of simulation aspect of games, right? So like a lot of people talk about, I think like John Blow kind of talks about this in this way, where it's like games have, the unique ability, unlike a movie or a book where you might be creating a world, right? But you can like fudge things, right? You can have like like suspension of disbelief, like takes you pretty far. If you're making a game and you actually want to make the thing you're talking about a proper part of the gameplay, right? You actually need to make the rules self-consistent, or else the thing you make just won't work, right? Like literally won't function, right? And that's sort of what I mean by like the simulation aspect of games, where you're sort of creating this like microcosm of reality, and that can end up like surprising you, right? And there's like a lot of things you can do, like and that just sort of comes up in the process of doing that. Like there's an anecdote that I like. I think before we started, like you mentioned I'm kind of into urbanism, right? And there's an anecdote I find hilarious, where the creators of Sin City, they decided that they could not realistically depict the typical amount of parking space that you would see in an American city, because it would be too depressing, right? it would literally be like so unfun that they're like, well, we have to fudge the numbers. And now there's like an indie game. I for the life of me can't remember what it's called.
The like parking garage simulator.
Whatever. Right.
Yeah,
where it's actually like, taking that almost like that idea that came about, that anecdote, and it's like, okay, we're gonna make almost like a political statement. Right.
That
through
is
the mechanics, the simulation of our game. right? And
Yes.
so that's it's sort of like these three things, right? Like you have the, like game in the sense of chess, you have like game in the sense of simulation, right? And you have game in the sense of like interactive storytelling. And so like depending on, you can make a game that's like one of these things, you can make a game that's like all three of these things, you can make a game like just two. I think like Diorama Break right now is really just like, we want to have a fun combat system and we want to tell an interesting story. There's less of the simulation aspect, right? So like I have ideas for stuff I might do later on that's like more simulation-y, right? And then I might be thinking like, okay, well, what part of the real world do I want to depict in this simulation? What do I want that to say, right? Like what understanding of the real world do I want to put in? And I think, the best art is always something that reveals some truth to you. Like maybe you can find exceptions to this, but I think as a rule of thumb, this is like pretty good. Where like if you really want to ask yourself like, is this like truly great? Or like why? Like if there's something you already find great, like why do I find this great? Like it's good to think along the lines of like, okay, what truth about the world is this revealing to me, or making more salient, or putting to me in a form that I can understand better, right? I can just like fit into my brain better. And I think, games have their advantages. It should be pretty clear from like what I was talking about before, that like games have their advantages in being able to do this. And so that's like, bring it to like interactive storytelling. I think that's like something I want to do in Diorama Rig is take like ideas I've seen, and not necessarily like ideas I have that are just like, oh, this is what I think, and like everybody should think this, and so I'm going to put it. But like really, like I think that there's like writing advice that I like. That's like, well, interesting conflicts in your stories come from interesting conflicts in your head, right? Like if there's something that you're actually like struggling with it, like there's like something in the world that like you don't quite, or like a trade-off that you see, right, that's not necessarily obvious, right? Like putting that in your writing can be compelling.
That piece of yourself, that's what lends it, I think, that interesting quality.
And exactly, right. So it's and there's like various, it could be like just like an empirical truth, right? Like this is how I think the world is. It could be like a moral truth, right? So it could be like, this is a question of values that I have, that I think in the world like people might struggle with, or like it's not like there's ways that I think the world ought to be, but sometimes they might come into conflict with each other, and there might be like trade-offs there, right? And putting that kind of thing into your story, that I think lends depth and richness, right? And so that's I part of my philosophy, I guess, to go all the way back to the original question.
Absolutely, yeah. I think that, basically, so what you're saying is those three elements that kind of combine to make it something elevated beyond just essentially chess or Pong.
Well, I mean, it's not to say that like any one of them lacks depth on its own, right?
No, not at all. But that's I should say, is sort of what elevates it to something beyond just games, that interactive storytelling that you were talking about.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Well, it's just, I wouldn't say that like, a pure game, or like a pure, like the Stanley Parable is like pretty pure interactive storytelling, right? And it's like, okay, is the Stanley Parable more elevated than chess, right? It's like it's a weird comparison.
Yes, because it's a video game. Yes.
Yeah. Right. Or even just like like Mario 64 is like a video game. It's also like,
sure. Yeah. Mario 64 is, right, 1,000 times more fun than the Silver Case, for example. Yeah. It's 1,000 times more fun than like any visual novel. But no one's like, oh, my favorite part of Mario 64 has got to be the dialogue when I found the invisible toad and he told me how Bowser captured the princess again.
Yeah. But I think what I'm trying to say is that like it appeals to different things you might value, right? I mean, someone could play Mario 64, right? And people have like for just like thousands of hours, right? And get so much out of that. And I don't want to say that like, oh well, this is not revealing some deep thing about political organization, right? And therefore it's worthless, right? I think, there's different kinds of truths. There's like truths about what you appreciate kinesthetically. Like you look at a lot of like old paintings, right? Like, and it's just, well, here's like a really beautiful landscape, or here's something like truly awe-inspiring, right? And like no one would say, well, this is like base or tasteless, or not elevated. It's right, because it does in its own way like reveal some truth about like, how your mind operates, and how, like what aesthetically satisfies you, and what aesthetically satisfies like other humans, right? And what, there's like thinking about that stuff, like it's deep, man. Like there's deep things.
It is.
Think
It
about
genuinely is. Yeah.
right? And I don't think it sounds a bit funny to say, but like I don't think something like Mario 64 is necessarily an exception to that.
Yeah.
Right.
Like all games can be the same. They have that artistic quality to them, but they have the ability to influence people the same way as the elevated games, I suppose.
Yeah. Although I mean, this is also not to say that like people don't make slop that's just like not very interesting.
Certainly. Yeah, anything made in 5 seconds in AI, any asset flip, that can be written off as complete garbage you can wipe your ass with. Like, that's not even a question. I think we're both on the same page there. I'd say the only artistic merit is like, what was it? You ever see that article where the guy was like, this guy came in and started eating all my AI artwork, and it was like taking a picture of the guy. He's like eating all the paintings off the wall made with AI.
It's like AI generated.
Yeah, just doing that with a USB. No, that's the only way really I've seen it used in an artistic way. But yeah, all games are art. Even Pong is art, I'm sure. Well, yeah, I mean, the first people who saw it was completely new medium to a lot of people. It was unfathomable. Tennis on the TV breaks some people's minds. People used to say if you show a Pilgrim the Game Boy in the 1600s or whatever, then they would explode instantly. But it didn't happen. They were introduced to a whole new way of thinking and perceiving things, and they just learned to love it, basically.
Yeah, I mean, although I think it's telling that like, people don't play Pong a ton nowadays, but people still like play Tetris a lot.
Well, maybe, there's no Pong roguelike. Well, now that's why.
Yeah. Are you sure about that? I would be surprised to find a Pong roguelike at this point.
I bet someone's cooking it up. If I go on Twitter right now, I'm sure I'll find Pong survivors or something. But yeah, it's just, I'm sure it'll still
we have to mine every corner of the trend.
Yeah, we gotta get everything.
It's like isekai.
Yes, isn't it disgusting? I can't believe I died and I woke up in Pong Survivors, and now I have to hit this ball for hours on end so I can get enough level ups to go back to my home world. The longer a title is, the worse the series is for any of those anime, I tell you. But yeah, getting a little off track, but you get it. Yeah. So what exactly was the jump from programmer to studio head? How were you able to perform that? What propelled that? And was Diorama Break the thing that was kind of bouncing around in your head that was the impetus for creating Massimo Studios and making all this stuff a reality?
Yeah. So I mean, I think like from the beginning, I was like, I think 9 years old. I already kind of knew I wanted to do games, but like I was 9 years old and I was reading like a book about day in the life of a video game designer. And I was like, yes, I'm going to do that. Right. And that's so I
just totally
foolishly pre-committed. And now I'm chained to the whims of my 9-year-old self.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's the way it should be,
But and then so I grew up a teenager. I got like more into like indie games, and it was kind of clear to me like, okay, this is where all the interesting art is happening. So like, how am I going to structure my career such that I get to do interesting stuff? And the answer was clearly like, okay, at some point I have to just like make my own studio and have between 2 and 20 people working with me.
Okay, so this has all been laid out in your mind for roughly 15 years.
So this is like, okay, this is the goal. But obviously, I was 16 and I was like, okay, but first I got to actually be able to make stuff.
You had a feverish dream and you were like, I got to meet up with Tony Grayson.
No,
step one.
Well, we'll get to that. So I was like 16. I was like, okay, I gotta start making games. Like, what's good to try? And I saw that Game Maker, right? Like a lot of the interesting indie games I was playing at the time were made in Game Maker, right? So like Undertale, Hyper Light Drifter, Hotline Miami, right? These were all like Game Maker games. And like when I was 16, I was looking at, okay, well, that's perfect, right? Because like, there's like more advanced stuff that seems daunting, but like, Game Maker, clearly you can make professional stuff in this engine, but it also seems super approachable, right? So I picked that up. And I think I tried like one project with the drag and drop, and then I jumped immediately to the scripting language, and I took to it. Like I ended up like surprise, surprise, I'm actually pretty good at programming, and I enjoy it. So that, I think when I was younger, I was expecting to be more on the design side of things, but I actually ended up becoming a pretty good programmer, right? So now I actually, I have opinions about freaking, language stuff, very esoteric things, right? So like I'm into it.
Make the world work, yeah.
Yeah. So I did that. I did like a little after high school, I did a little vocational program for game design, right? And then in 2020 was when I graduated like right when COVID started. And so I looked for jobs like in Montreal, nobody bit. And then I was like, what a fool am I? And I just went to the Game Maker Discord, right? And it's like, I know how to use Game Maker. And clearly people make professional. So like, I go to Game Maker Discord, I'll see who is hiring. And Tony Grayson was hiring.
Wow, just like that.
Yeah. And it was like, these other indie studios in Montreal, I would like email them and, get back a rejection a month later. But like Tony was within like a few days, just like, yeah, you're on board.
Yeah, you hear that indie scene in Montreal, you got to step it up. Let your talent slip through your fingers.
Yeah, really. I mean, I think it's mostly because a lot of the studios here are just like friends who got together. They're not really like hiring.
Right. They're not looking for outside influence.
Yeah, right. And, I also kind of like, I wouldn't have been against working at Ubisoft. But at the time, it's like, I didn't really have a proper degree. I had no professional experience.
Right. You didn't really have a longing to work on Assassin's Creed, Odyssey, or whatever.
And I wasn't like, I was like, I wasn't going to put, months and months of effort to like work on the next Assassin's Creed.
Exactly. Your heart's not going to be in it.
Yeah. So, like months of effort to like get hired to work on. So that's kind of like how I started at Summit Sphere. And at the beginning, it was really just like, a few hours a week because it was on Anton Ball, right? So this was halfway through Anton Ball, I got hired.
Was that the original Anton Ball or was that DX?
Anton Ball, not the original Anton Ball, I think was just like a game jam game.
Okay.
So this was deluxe. That was like a 1-year dev cycle on a pretty shoestring budget, right? So I was not working a ton of hours. But obviously,
fun and interesting it was my first that people should play.
Yeah, it was my first job, so I was willing to work at affordably, let's say. Although not to say I was underpaid, I think it was entirely reasonable. I was being paid at the time.
Don't worry. This is going straight to the Tony expose. Don't worry.
Yeah. No. I really did enjoy working at Summit Sphere. It was. I don't really have anything bad to say. So no Tony expose today. And then so like Anton Ball came out, and then Tony went off to like Prototype Blast, right? And I was doing like other contract work, again through the Game Maker Discord primarily. And then I helped out with the Anton Blast demo, and they went to Kickstarter, and that was a success. So that was like I think also at the time when I was working on Anton Ball, that was when I was like prototyping Diorama Break. Okay. So like I had the idea back in 2018, and I think I just wrote about this in a blog post, but like I had the idea back in 2018. In 2020 or like mid 2020, a few months after I graduated, I was like, okay, I gotta like, I'm not getting hired anywhere. I gotta do something with my hands. So I did like this prototype. I did some devlogs for that. And that took about a year. So it was like July 2020 to 2021. And that was just like a gameplay prototype. So it was just the combat system, trying to see like, okay, is there something fun here? And when that was done, I didn't have a ton of people to test it with, but I found it fun enough that I was like, okay, I think I can make this work. And so, but then, other contract work and started working on Anton Blast, and that was like the more interesting thing taking up my attention at the time. So I kind of like put Diorama Break to the side. But it was always kind of like there, like, okay, I'll either I want to find a way to do this like after Anton Blast, like maybe at Summit Sphere, or maybe I'll go do my own thing. I wasn't really sure.
Right.
But in 2023 is when I started going like, okay, I got to find now a team for this, right? So I got to start thinking about, my thinking was like, okay, originally this was like gonna be like a small thing I could work on out of school, but like now it's like, okay, well, I don't really want to like stop working on Anthem Blast and then go and work on something that's like less ambitious or impressive, right? So I was like, okay, I'm gonna find, and now I know kind of like how one of these indie studios runs. So like I'm gonna do something similar, like production wise.
Yeah,
right?
assemble your own super squad.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, the first thing I got to do is I got to find an art director, right, and then everything else will flow from there. But like it's really important that I have someone, because I think this is a problem that I see with a lot of amateur games and even a lot of like commercial indie games, right, is that they'll have like beautiful individual assets, right, but the game as a whole kind of like doesn't fit together, and it's just like it doesn't cohere aesthetically.
Yeah, a little bit
right.
dissonance.
Yeah, and there's like there's like lack of polish here and there, and it's like, well, the UI looks completely different from the rest of the game, and so like I really wanted to avoid like getting a bunch of artists working in isolation, and then suddenly ending up with something that just like doesn't come together, right? So it was important to me that like I find someone who can do the art direction, who can like just make sure everything works together, like direct a team to do that. And in the end, like just like as director, I ended up and like after having worked on Anthem Blast, we're skipping ahead a bit here, but like I ended up doing a lot of that work on the Diorama Break demo myself, just like coming up with opinions on how things should work and giving that. But I was not the best at it, and we'll get to that. So I found also in 2023 we went to PAX East, and I actually talked to Dante then about the project in person, because I just like knew I wanted him to do the music.
Yeah.
Right. So like on the art side, it was like, oh, I have no freaking clue. But on the music side, it was just like, oh, I know exactly what I want.
Yeah. The exact sounds.
Yeah, I know exactly. Is like he's perfect. And so I think at the time he told me that he was interested, but he needed to see more art.
Right. You're like,
right?
What? Just give me one.
I need to see what the project looks like to really make a final decision. So, which is completely fair. And so, in near the end of 2023, I reached out to Sako, and the interesting thing about that is that so like I built a little Twitter bot to like scrape through Twitter accounts. To be like, is this person an artist? Is this person like these other related games that helped inspire Diorama Break? Right? I gave all these accounts like a little score, and would like try and use that score to like search through.
You ever encounter any really bizarre ones?
Kind of, actually, yeah. Like one of them, although I don't think this was the bot.
It's your own casual browsing.
But this is already kind of a tangent. But like that actually helped build a shortlist for later. But I found Sako because I was scrolling through Dante's follower, and I saw a profile picture that was like, oh, that's a cool profile picture, right? And I looked up who drew that profile picture, and it was Sako, right? I was like, oh wow, I think, and I saw it like his portfolio stood out to me as like, because he had made like little Pico 8 games as well. And he had a lot of variety, right? And so his portfolio stood out to me as like, this is someone who can not just like be like a really good illustrator, for example, right? But like really kind of has a sense of like, how a game would look. So like I reached out to him. I commissioned him to like do like mock up a screenshot of what the final game might look like. And it was amazing, right? It was like, okay, perfect. Right. And so I brought him on board pretty quick. And then through him, so like he suggested a few more people we could bring onto the team. And I think through him, like this was like beginning 2024, I reached out to a bunch of people, and I wasn't planning on reaching out so early, but I was applying for a grant at the time. and they kind of wanted you to be an established studio already. And I was like, well, best I can do is like a bunch of emails.
Just that Canadian content I've heard so much about.
Yeah. The Canadian Media Fund. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I didn't end up getting that because they kind of want you to be an established studio.
Right.
Right. So, and I was going to them being like, hey, I found like, 8 guys who said they want to work on my game.
Like that's nothing.
I've never talked to them
Johnny
before.
Test. You got to make something like that.
Yeah. So I reached out, and I think, so I didn't get the grant, but I think doing this was really great because if I had asked people like a month in advance, for example, they would have just been like, I'm busy, right? I have work already, right? But because I asked in March, hey, do you want to work on this game in November? I think a lot of them were just like, oh, great, I have a job lined up.
Yeah. Set that time aside to actually get started on it.
Yeah. So it's convenient, right? And it all like we had a short list for like all the roles we wanted on the team, and we ended up getting our like first, second, or third choice for everyone. Like usually our first choice, which was really incredible to me because I was literally just like cold DMing people on Twitter, like with like a pitch, being like, "Hey, do you want to work on this?"
Doing name dropping, you're just like, "I got this great idea. I'm a visionary. Trust me."
Yeah. I literally at the top of my pitch document, it was like, "Hey." I put like a photo of myself.
Yeah, what's going on?
Yeah.
Busy.
So that went great, and that was I think in large part because I had Sako on board to be like, hey, I have some like look at this talented guy.
This is what it's going to look like.
And some of them were already knew Sako. Like they were people he'd suggested. I think Hasu, our illustrator, was one that he suggested. A few other people, I don't remember exactly. And so that went super well. And so I'm trying to remember now and this was also, so at the time we were finishing Antal Blast, right? And this was kind of, I think, so like over the course of developing Antal Blast, I kind of realized, okay, probably gonna have to do my own studio here. Like if I really want the control and the independence, and just like, it's not to say Tony wasn't supportive, but it was also like, this is an entire own thing that's like not really related to any Summit stuff.
It's a brand new IP. It's a risk.
Yeah. So it's like, well, I'm going to have to do like all the work myself anyway. Probably best to just like make it my own thing entirely. Right. And if it doesn't work out, I'll stick with Summit and see what they have next. But it was always my plan to be like, I wasn't going to like drop in the middle of Anton Blast. It was always like, okay, Anton Blast, we're going to finish it. Right. And then I'll be able to move on. Right. And I timed everything. Maybe this was a mistake because I probably could have used a vacation in between Anton Blast. I sort of wanted to, but Anton Blast ended up getting delayed like a couple months. So, I thought Anton Blast would be done in like September 2024. Right. And I was planning everything with Diorama Break to start in like November, December-ish, right? But Antal Blast ended up coming out in December.
Right.
So it was like, and also I had to move houses and stay like 3 months in like this, student dorm thing.
Oh, it's horrible.
Like Airbnb, because my lease ended and then the new lease didn't start until a few months later, right? So like Antal Blast was ending. I had this like lease thing. I was starting Diorama Break. Right. I was like drafting everybody's contracts.
All out on a laptop.
In this like one tiny room with like communal showers.
Oh, hellish.
Yeah. It was like, I'm just like the master of bad timing with this sort of stuff. It's like whenever there's any like big career project milestone, there's like some shit, like even like with this Kickstarter, right? Like a bunch of bad stuff timing happened.
Kickstarter. Bad stuff happened with the Kickstarter, so I guess.
Well, I got a cold on launch day.
Oh, that's like a bad omen.
There's that too, but it was also, I mean, I'm not going to get into it, but there was like some personal emergency stuff that happened like a few weeks before we launched, which and it's all just like bad luck, right? Like it's not really anything I could have controlled,
right?
But so yeah, that was the plan, and I executed on that plan, and it was maybe a bit rushed, but I'm also, the kind of person who's like, I really, gotta make something great before I get old and or die. Like Toby Fox released Undertale when he was 24, right?
Isn't that sickening to me?
So,
Yeah.
I at the time I was sitting there. It's like, I'm 24. It's like, I gotta get on it, man.
Yeah. Why don't I have Undertale?
Yeah.
Why am I not making Deltarune?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. So I was like, I gotta, I can't take a year off. I gotta do it. So, and also just because I think, in my head at the time, it was sort of like, okay, if we can get it done fast, then I can I can pay everyone. We'll go to Kickstarter, we'll get our full funding, right? And then I can bring everyone on. And I don't have to kind of like deal with, oh, I can't pay you enough, so you have to go find other projects, and that might like eat up your time and attention. Right. Which, makes it harder to keep ideally I would want every team member to just like have 100% focus on Diorama Break. Now that's obviously very difficult when you have a very limited budget.
Right.
So like for the demo, it was kind of impossible, but hopefully we get the resources we need to do that. Or at least, you work on Diorama Break part-time, and maybe like one other thing part-time. Right. So it's not like there's many different things taking up your attention, or at least we pay people enough that like Diorama Break is like the main thing that they're working on.
Right. And this is all leading to today.
Yeah. So this was Anablast came out end of 2024, December 2024, and like that's when we started Diorama Break, working on the demo with the whole team. Now, obviously, I was working on the engine from like March 2024, but the actual demo itself with like all the team on it started around December 2024, and that's I think like I incorporated the studio in April. I have a studio, but like my philosophy around this is that I really want like the game and the people working on it to be like the focus of any like marketing. So like technically I have a studio under my name, but it's not like we're not doing like big branding with it in the way like Summit Sphere does, for example.
Right.
Right. So like really I want people to be interested in the team, and not some name, because, I see this happen all the time in the gaming industry where it's like people get really attached to like a studio name, and then like all the people at that studio kind of get Theseus out. Right.
Absolutely.
And 5 years later, like none of the same people that made the thing you love are working on the new thing. And yet whoever owns the studio is still kind of exploiting your lingering attachment.
The Zam situation. Absolutely. Disgusting stuff.
Yeah. So I don't, that's kind of why, right? Like I don't want a brand name, right? Like to the extent that we have a brand, it's like the personal brand of me and everyone who worked on the project, and the project itself.
Right. So you can just kind of stand on the merits of what you're showing and the previous work of the people who are working on currently.
But yeah, I mean, to answer your question then, so that's where I jumped off. We finished Anthroblast. I was like, cool.
Now to jump immediately into this.
Yeah. Now I can go full time into Diorama Break. And I guess I could keep going and talk about how the demo went.
We should, but first I think we should address what exactly is Diorama Break. We've been talking about it a lot, but what is Diorama Break? What's it about, and what should people think of when they think of it? What's the whole idea?
So tagline, Diorama Break is it's the special tactics RPG where you can talk directly to the hero. So the idea was, I think, originally the way I would pitch it a lot to people is like, what if you had, a pretty traditional JRPG, but you could talk directly to the hero, right? And the world as a whole was like kind of aware that this was the case, right? So like everybody, like it's part of their lives, right? Like there's this hero, and he's like talking to this person outside the world that's like meant to guide them, right? And so a lot of that was kind of like the original idea, and a lot of the idea for the project, like the full project, sprang from that kind of thinking, right? And some other stuff that was kind of like, okay, how do I, a lot of it was like, how do I take these sort of like JRPG tropes that are kind of just like there for the sake of like the game or convenience, and like do interesting world building with them, where it's like make them actually function inside like a self-consistent world that has a level of depth to it beyond just like, oh, all the NPCs are just kind of one note.
Yeah, walking around, little exposition. Oh, this lunch soon. Same thing every 20 times you talk to them.
Yeah. So, and then obviously, you know, like I iterated on that first in my head and then through actually working on it, and came to, you know, of course we only have the demo out now, but like what you're seeing now is the tip of the iceberg in terms of like all the stuff that I've thought about for like how we're going to do the plot, and how the world works, and where everything is going. Right.
Where was left off? That's what I was hoping for. I did want more of it. My biggest problem with the demo was that it ended and I didn't feel finished or fulfilled. I wanted more.
Damn, bro, we worked so hard. It's funny. Like I really, in hindsight, because it took much longer than I thought it would, because when we did the Anton Blast Kickstarter demo, that took like 4 months, which is insane now that I think about it, right? Like in hindsight, like that's, you know, we were 4 people. How the hell did we get that done in 4 months? And so on this demo, you know, a JRPG, very different beast. And I thought we would get it done, you know, in around the same time, but no, it took us like 14 months.
Yeah, way longer.
Yeah. So it was rough. And fortunately, we did not go over budget. So, you know, I'm not, I am merely broke, not in crippling debt.
You didn't have to open any credit cards.
Right. Although technically, I am in crippling debt now because I spent a bunch of money on Kickstarter ads.
Oh, don't worry. It'll pay for itself. It's fine.
But yeah, exactly. Right. It's like, well, it's fine. There's no risk. No risk.
It's an investment. That's all.
It is. It really is. I mean, they've been working, like some of them have worked really well. Some of them right now are worked less well. But don't worry. I'm as like a fraction of what we're going to get from Kickstarter. It's not even that much.
Yeah. And I mean, I think the thing is too with the demo, that's not to say like, oh, it feels incomplete or it feels like bad. I think that's the best thing a demo can provide is to make the person playing it, like me, feel like, well, I want more of this. I'm mad I don't get more of this. That's the whole reason I put money in. Because like, well, I want to see more of this. I'm going to pay to see more of this.
Well, because what I was going to say is, so it took 14 months. In hindsight, I really should have just done the first half of the demo. Like we really should have focused on getting the first half of the demo done, releasing that on Steam, and then having that there to gather people while we worked on the second half, right? And then the whole demo would be done and we would go to Kickstarter with that. But after having had, you know, several months of people trying out just the first half.
Yeah, you get some intrigue, right? Some theories going.
Because
what's the relationship between Pro and the guard captain? Lovers, perhaps?
I think the biggest thing I'm not regret, because I kind of didn't have a choice to do this. But the biggest thing that kind of sucks about the way we're doing the Kickstarter is that, you know, we put out the demo on Steam, and that got like a huge amount of attention, like way more attention, because we'd had a Steam page up since like August, right? But putting the demo up actually got like a huge amount of attention. And we announced the Kickstarter like as soon as the demo went up, because like I kind of, like I said, like I can't just kind of wait around for 6 months because I don't have money right now to like pay for the development. Right. So it's we were really like forced to, okay, like we got to go to Kickstarter now. Also because it took longer than expected to finish everything. And even like, you know, we had an open beta in February, and even that didn't get us nearly as much attention as we got as soon as we came out on Steam. So that's the thing that kind of like most Kickstarter campaigns I find, like they'll release their demo and then they'll just like keep working on it for like 6-8 months, while getting attention and having their Kickstarter page up and gathering followers, right? And then when they launch their Kickstarter, they have that immediate following that really boosts them, right? Whereas we just kind of had like to rely on that like month of immediate momentum. So I think that the Kickstarter is going well and it's going to be a success. Yes. But it's like, if I had only done the first half and released that in August, like and had the Kickstarter page up, like maybe we could have raised an extra 100K.
We'd have even more.
Even more. Yeah. But you live, you learn. I don't think it's going to be an impediment to getting it done, right? So
no, I think you're well on the way to getting the minimum, if not much more than that.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be going quite well. Yeah. So with the game itself, what would you say are the main inspirations behind Diorama Break? What did you take from it? And if not from games, are there any films, novels, or real life incidents that kind of created this, came together?
Well,
Like
so I
this?
talk about a bit on the Kickstarter page. The biggest inspiration for the story is probably One Shot, and that's really just for the premise. So I wouldn't say that I'm like stealing everything from One Shot, like the whole aesthetic. Because like One Shot
Right.
has its own like very distinct aesthetic, and
I'll
we're
be looking out for
like,
that light bulb. I don't know.
yeah. But it was really, like I played One Shot in 2017, and just this idea, right? That's like a very similar idea of like you, it's like a little adventure game, but you talk directly to the protagonist, right? And I think I thought the game used it to great effect to create this, like, I'm not going to spoil it here, but like to create this sort of like bond with the protagonist that then at the end gets exploited is maybe not the wrong word, not the right word, but they use that bond they've created to have just like a very impactful moment at the ending. And I saw that, I was like, oh, okay, so that's like just like a very simple idea that I don't think, like you could use this idea in like all sorts of contexts, right? Like it goes back to what I was saying about the narrative, like the different mediums, right? Like this feels like the kind of thing that could just be like a way, if not the way video games do storytelling, right? And so there's a lot of ground here that could be covered, right? So like I'm going to take this idea and put it into completely different setting with my own ideas from elsewhere, and see what I can do with that. And then for the gameplay, for the combat system, I think Into the Breach was another game I was playing around that time that I thought was really cool, where you could like, specifically the idea of like, okay, you see what all the enemies are going to do, and you like plan out your turn. That was the idea. And then also, so like, let's do Into the Breach, and I don't just want to do Into the Breach. So the idea I had was like, what if we took, I don't know if there was anything at the time that was really like the inspiration for this. I think it was just like, this is like a cool idea I have for a tactics combat system. But like, what if you had, like fighting games, every action would have like a startup, an active time, and a cooldown, right? You build a system around that where like you actually had to think about the timing of your actions, right? Because like most tactics games, it's like you have your turn, the enemy has their turn, right? And you do all your stuff on your turn, then the enemy does all their stuff on their turn, right? But like, if you think about it, there's there's a lot of ground you could explore, right, when you bring time into it, right? So like one thing we do in Diorama Break is like you have weaker actions, but they're faster. So they're actually much better than maybe your action that like does twice the amount of damage, because you can actually hit your opponent before they can hit you.
Right.
And that's like a very basic trade-off in the combat system. And there's all sorts of stuff that's like that, right? And I think there's a lot of sort of semi-real-time games that do that. So like Transistor, if you've heard of it.
Is it the one from the Bastion developers?
Yes. So same guy. It's funny that you mentioned Bastion, because I imagine most people nowadays would know them for Hades.
Oh yeah, that's true. I totally forgot.
Yeah. They did Bastion, Transistor, Pyre, and then Hades, if I remember correctly. And now Hades 2.
Hades 2.
And Transistor was a game that I had played again around that time, like 2015, 2017, that I really loved. And that had a similar system where it was a real-time action game, but you could pause and you could like queue up a bunch of attacks. And they would each take like a certain amount of time, right? You would like move around the map and then you would like execute that, and your character would like go and execute all the attacks. Right. And so I think, I don't know how much I was actually thinking of Transistor at the time, but like in hindsight, it was definitely just like in my subconscious. And it's funny because now, I put this game out and people mention like, I think I heard this first at like PAX West when we showed the game off. Phantom Brigade, right?
Phantom Brigade.
Which had, it's another tactics game that has like a very similar system, although it's like a 3D kind of mech game. But yeah, it's like a similar idea of like, everything happens concurrently, right? But you like queue up your actions for all your units. And I thought that wasn't inspiration, but I thought it was really cool because, like a lot of like convergent design, right? Like I saw it and it's like, oh my God, like another designer had all the same ideas that I did. Not all the same ideas, but like a lot of the
Yeah, the kind of parallel thinking, the same like good
yeah.
idea. It lasts between these games.
Yeah, but like one thing Phantom Brigade didn't do, which I really wanted to stick to because like I really like grid-based tactics games with like doing everything on a grid and having everything be granular, right? So like rather than like it happens over like 5 seconds and you can subdivide it however you want, right? Like every turn is like 6 steps, right? And it's really like every step is this like granular thing, right? And I think it's a similar philosophy to why like in Diorama Break we have low damage numbers, right? So like all your attacks deal like 2, maybe 4 damage. Enemies have like 12 HP, right? Like the idea is that it lets you, as opposed to like in Pokemon, where the attack formula, right, has like half a dozen different components. And you can sort of like roughly intuit how much damage you're going to do, but it's always going to be like, 240 something because of all these modifiers and whatnot. I think having like the really low damage numbers and knowing exactly how much damage you're going to do and having it like it unlocks a sort of like qualitatively different way of doing tactics because you can actually in your head calculate ahead fairly reasonably. Because
it's an impact to decision making.
Yeah, it's all simple arithmetic, right? Yeah. And so like the complexity we have in the combat system comes from eventually. So like in the demo, we keep it fairly pared down so that it's not too overwhelming. But like in the full game, like the complexity will come by like you have a lot of different units, right? And eventually they'll all be sort of like interrupting each other, and like it'll be this like long sequence of events that you kind of have to like think through for your turn and maybe even future turns, right? And I think having everything else be as like reasonably simple as possible makes it so that that's not too overwhelming once you've gotten used to it.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that's really impressive about Diorama Break as well. The battle system is that grid-based system actually giving the feeling of having to dodge and weave out of the enemy's attacks, seeing what they're going to be. Is something I haven't really seen in a grid-based system like this Gaia, for example. It's you just wait to get hit, and then the giant attack that kills everything gets you, and there's nothing you can really do about it. So it adds a lot of kind of excitement, I would say, to everything, to being able to sidestep things and counterattack and everything. It's just very nice.
Yes, thank you. I worked really hard on it. Yeah, I'm so glad it's good. And it's rough, man, because it's like it's so different from anything else that like there's no playbook. Like you really just have to like there's so many decisions we took that's just like, well, I hope this is good. Right, because like in the prototype, this was only kind of gonna make sense if you actually like played the demo, so I'll keep it brief, but like all you would just like there would be like no queuing up actions. You would just, as soon as one of your units was available, you could like choose to start an action right then and there, right? And this was very tedious because like literally every single step you'd have to like do a little movement if you wanted to like move across the stage. And this was like, oh, well, we have this design problem, right? That's like completely, no one's ever encountered this design problem before because like no one's tried to make a system like this before. And at a certain point, I remember I went to Sako and I was like, Sako, I've had a brain blast. Right, I know how we're going to solve this, right? We're going to make it so like we'll still have turns, right? Because that was another thing. Like people used to other tactics games, right? They did not get like the steps thing, right? They would try to take an action on every single step because, action economy, right? But this was not, no. You want to actually, like in the prototype, it was like you wanted to hang back and like wait until your opponent did something and then take advantage of that. But people were just like not getting this, right? And I think part of it was that like, when you queue up an action, it takes like multiple steps. So like you're really investing time into it.
More that Fire Emblem kind of mentality, where it's like the free action.
Exactly, right. They were coming into it with the Fire Emblem mentality, right? So, but like, so you really have to be judicious in when you choose to do what, So we decided, okay, we'll make it so that there are turns again, right? And every turn is going to be like a certain amount of steps. We settled on like 6 steps. This will make it more like other tactics games without really taking away from what makes the system interesting, right? Because you'll like queue up your actions, and every turn will be like, you'll have time for like one movement and one attack, or maybe like two attacks, right? And this is like how a lot of other tactics games work. But you'll still like, if you like queue up a bunch of movement and then you try to do an attack that like has a super huge cooldown, that's going to spill over into the next turn. Right. So like you still have that element of like the cooldowns matter, and stuff like that. And like you have to time your attacks such that it goes off before your opponent does, or that you're, outside the opponent's range, so that you don't get hit. Because, we kept that idea from fighting games that like, if you get hit first, your attack does not go off.
Yeah, that trade-off almost. Like looking at the frame data is kind of what it feels like.
Yeah. No, it's literally inspired by frame data, yes.
Yeah, perfect. Beautiful.
I think in the prototype, I when I was prototyping a bunch of attacks, I would literally go on one of these like Super Smash Brothers wikis.
And,
look at frame data for attacks and be like, like a
fighting game of choice as well. Smash Brothers.
Yeah. Although in the new demo, it was a lot more like, okay, I have a better idea of the system, and I'm just going to make attacks that I know will work with what we have. Because that was another thing in the prototype. I tried to do some like pretty wacky actions because I was just throwing shit at the wall. Some of them were just like people, like playtesters were not getting it.
They just didn't even see it.
Yeah, like I tried to put in like a reflector that was like, it lasts for 3 steps and it'll prevent all damage from attacks that are like, but only if they're like 8 tiles away from you. Yes,
it lasts for 1 frame and you get a big hexagon around you.
Yeah. So that I didn't do any of that in this demo. Like maybe, if we think players can
the advanced, the boss rush, maybe, or the Cave of 1,000 Trials down the line, something like that.
Yeah. What was it? So what was the original question again? Because now
what were the games that contributed to the creation? So we got the fighting games, we've got the tactics.
Yeah.
We've got the concept that conceit games like One Shot and Undertale, that direct player character connection, storytelling.
Yeah. And then so it was really One Shot, Into the Breach. I would say
Smash Brothers.
The big thing. It's ideas from all fighting games, right? Because I'm not like a huge fighting game guy, but like I really like the design. Like I like the theory. Like I watch a ton of like YouTube videos just talking how fighting games work.
It is beautiful. I love it. I wish I was better at them.
Yeah. So and I did play Smash Bros. Quite a bit, but like I never got into something more traditional like Guilty Gear, right? Although,
and now's the time. Now's the time to get a Third Strike and Darkstalkers.
Yeah.
It's only 20 years later.
It's rough if you don't have the muscle memory, right?
It's hard. It's hard, but it's worth it. Once you get a good combo off, you feel truly exceptional. You feel like you've really accomplished something. It's great. Then you just have to do another 100 times perfectly, so you do it perfectly every time.
Yeah, I don't play a ton of games these days because I'm too busy working on games.
Yeah, that's
sucks. But I still try to play stuff. I'm sure you'll be asking me what I've played recently. But so then I'd say like obviously we have a kind of like general inspiration from various JRPGs. So I mentioned Xenoblade Chronicles was like a big formative game for me, and like the way they kind of structured their plot is something I enjoy, right? And there's a few other works that like kind of do similar things, but like I always think of Xenoblade of like they have this like immediately interesting world, right? And then they kind of like peel layer after layer in terms they just like reveal thing after thing as the plot moves along, right? And it's like interesting stuff, right? It's all stuff that's like either foreshadowed or like that makes sense with what they talked about before. Maybe not all of it, but like to me that like playing that was like it's super engaging, right? Like
this is what it could be. This is what a story could be.
It just keeps you hooked the whole time, right? And so
what will Dixon do next?
So that kind of structure and that kind of what will Dixon do? You make that joke, but like
no, it's true. Anyone who's played the game knows. Yeah. Oh yeah, I love Xenoblade.
Yeah. So like that's what will do? Yeah. And so Yeah, that sort of structure, and you know, the like I made like the diorama be like in the shape of a smiley face, right?
Okay.
Because I was like, the thing Xenoblade did, where you're like walking around like a big guy, and like all the locations are like his leg,
Yeah.
or his shoulder, and like that was super cool, right? That was super cool, both in like, you know, it's just cool, but also like it lends a sense of place to all the locations you visit in the context. Like, you always know where you are in the world relative to everything, right? Because it's like all tied to this like symbol that everyone has of like, everybody knows what how the human body is laid out, right? And so you have your world in the shape of a humanoid, you know how the world is laid out, right? And to me, that's like, it's so much more interesting than just doing like a vague fantasy blob continent.
Yeah, literally ascending on a god who you believe is dead or comatose or whatever.
Yeah, and so, you know, little tidbit for people, but that's why I decided I'll make my whole world in the shape of a smiley face, right? So that, you know, everywhere you go, like, you have a reference point.
That little piece of Xenoblade influence. Can't wait to get to the underside. We get to the frowny face from your world.
Maybe. I had well, I won't spoil anything, because I've had like a lot of ideas I've scrapped, and a lot of ideas I've kept.
Is there anything really outlandish that you're definitely not going to use?
Well, you'd have to give me an example.
Like what I just said, like with the table flips and you end up in the frowny face world.
The table flips and you end up with
everyone's like a reverse version of themselves. I feel like I have to
glamorize on everything. Because like the more possibilities I eliminate, the more people will be able to narrow down. Like, okay, so here's how it's going to go. Right?
We're not going to be meeting antagonists in the how do you say diorama backwards?
Yeah, oh my god. It's funny looking at the discussion in the Discord, because like some people will be close, some people will be way off. Because like everybody's like making their predictions for how it's going to go, right? And it's like, ooh.
Can't say anything.
Yeah,
yeah. Just have to wait and see.
Yeah, and then in general, so like, you know, I listed Breath of Fire 4 as an inspiration. Now, I haven't actually played Breath of Fire 4, but like all throughout when we were like figuring out how the game was going to look, Breath of Fire 4 kept coming up. Like all the screenshots kept coming up.
It's a crazy looking game. Wow,
this game looks fantastic, and also like exactly how, you know, aside from it's partly 3D, but like aside from that, like it looks like exactly like what I want to do, right? So, you know, it's not remiss to say that like aesthetically, Breath of Fire 4 was a big influence, right? And you know, like I ended up watching a long play and collecting like a bunch of reference materials from that. It's just really like, you know, it feels like when I was making Diorama Break, and when you look at a game like Breath of Fire 4, it feels like, okay, this is what JRPGs look like. But like I looked at like every JRPG, right? And
you see the stinkers.
Well, it's interesting. There's not a ton of RPGs that actually like feel like the archetypical JRPG. They're all pretty different in their own way aesthetically. Right. I mean, like you even think of like, you know, like Final Fantasy VII really has its own aesthetic.
7 is very unique.
Right? Yeah. Yes. Like 7 is very unique. And you look like what's another like Chrono Trigger? I guess Chrono Trigger, you know, people probably do think of Chrono Trigger as like, this is what JRPGs look like.
But it plays nothing like a standard JRPG at all either.
I guess, yeah, it's funny. When I played Chrono Trigger, I was like, wow, this really feels like I'm playing an anime.
Isn't it something?
It has a very unique pace. And I think a lot of like indies nowadays are like, they played Chrono Trigger when they were kids, and they're like, oh, we want to do something that's really like Chrono Trigger specifically, right? So I think that contributes to the impression of like Chrono Trigger as the JRPG.
Yes,
like when you think of I should say not the JRPG, the 2D JRPG.
It's the idea, the platonic ideal of the JRPG. From Dragon Quest and like Final Fantasy IV.
Right. But I thought, you know, and especially a few games from that like PS1 era, like I thought, you know, Breath of Fire 4 and those were like really what we were kind of shooting for aesthetically. And also just like, you know, you talked about other inspirations. I think, you know, I didn't want to make a game, like a pixel art game, just because like, oh, it's retro and I have nostalgia for that. Although
Yeah, so retro.
I'm sure that, you know, on some subconscious level, that's part of the reason. But like, I like pixel art as its own thing, right? And I want it to be like, you know, we're really like, the philosophy here is we're doing modern pixel art as far as we can push it. And we're playing to the strengths of pixel art. And we're not, you know, not that this is like a bad thing to do, but specifically, we are not doing this. We're not doing this thing where like we're really trying to be like an old console.
Yes. Yes, you're not trying to emulate that SNES look.
Yeah.
It's very much its own current thing.
Yeah, we're very much, we just want the game to look as good as possible in the style we've chosen and sticking to the style, right? So like we're like pretty purist about, you know, it's going to be 2D. It's going to be like aligned to the pixel grid, right? So like we're not going to do any of this like HD stuff where you have like a pixel art asset, but it doesn't like move on the grid, or it's like, or mixels. I think mixels. It's very rare that I see something with mixels that looks good.
The Undertale
for those that don't know, that's like mixels are differently sized pixels on the same screen. So like, you know, that's a thing we're very careful about avoiding. I also, you know, I ended up writing a whole document about like, I think pixel art is impressionistic, right? And I want the art in the game to like really be in that kind of impressionistic style, where, and you can see it in the final product where it's like, we're pretty painterly, right? There's a lot of like large flat areas of color. Like we don't try to make assets to me, the delight in pixel art is that like you're looking at something that's like fairly heavily abstracted, right? And you like your brain is kind of filling in the gaps, right? And I see other styles of pixel art where they go in and they just make it as detailed as possible, right? Like they really just like go super crazy on the detail, right? And I look at that and it's like, okay, but like, why is this pixel art? Why did this have to be pixel art? You know, it might even look great, right? But it's like, it doesn't feel to me like it's playing to the strength of that like artistic medium.
Right. Being able to represent it with this few.
Yeah. And this is like, to be clear, like my very kind of like personal aesthetic taste. Like there's nothing wrong with liking pixel art done in that way. Like you might enjoy that more. And that's like a perfectly reasonable.
Yeah, but for what you're trying to do, that is not it.
Yeah. And so, yeah, so that's I mean, there's a few, obviously, like there were some artists on Twitter that like I included in this document, but like it's sort of like impressionism in general was kind of an inspiration for the art. And it also fits, like, I also think like anime at its best tends to be a fairly impressionistic style. So it kind of works well together, right? Like we have, you know, a fairly anime-esque aesthetic. You know, I guess if you want to,
it is.
Yeah, hello. Yeah, if you want to, it's not a pixel art game, but like, you know, Breath of the Wild, right, was one of, you know, recent example of a game that's like, where, you know, they're going for a very impressionistic style, right?
It's very heavily stylized,
yeah, heavily stylized, a lot of nature, a lot of like flat colors with the cell shading, right? And so it's that, you know, I would list that as like a minor aesthetic inspiration.
That's the kind of thing also that sort of sticks out and sort of holds up over time as well, as that stylized look.
Mm-hmm.
Like even going back to the older like N64 Zeldas, Majora's Mask and Ocarina of Time, people don't like it because it looks so cutting edge and beautiful. They like it because of the style they chose for those games.
Yeah. Although I wouldn't say we're going for a very cartoony style. Because I was thinking of Wind Waker. So I do think, yeah, like Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask are fair comparisons. But so yeah, there's Breath of the Wild. That's like kind of a minor inspiration. People throw around the term Ghibli-esque a lot.
Yeah. They want to eat all the food.
Like I won't deny it. Right. I wouldn't. You know, there's definitely I for like the forest area, I definitely pulled out a few Mononoke screenshots.
The raindrops off the leaves, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, but also, you know, for some reason, it's really hard to find the kind of forest I wanted with the like water underneath it. It's really Anyway, I'm like getting into memories of communicating that stuff. And then, you know, in the story, I talked a bit about it, but like I want to like I take inspiration from maybe a lot of my thoughts about how like, oh, how, you know, both our society and just like abstract societies in general should be organized, and you know, moral principles. And you know, I brought up meta ethics on
Yeah.
the Kickstarter page, right? So like that's an interest of mine. You know, I'm not formally trained or anything, right? But like I talk about it a lot with my friends, and I, you know, consume a lot of like content online of like people discussing minutia. Like there's a guy I like following, Lance Bush, whose like whole deal is just like arguing for moral anti-realism, right? Which is just arguing with there's like Lance Bush on one side and a philosopher called Michael Huemer on the other side. We're both like modern philosophers who talk about a lot online on whether objective moral truth does or does not exist, right? And it's very very, very abstract sort of stuff, right? But it's that kind of and that's like just to give you an example of like what this field is like, where it's a lot of like, okay, how do we not like object level, like what should we do, but how do we even think about what we should do, right? And again, like what are the trade-offs there, and like how do the different philosophies, so like, you know, you can kind of split there's like two big moral schools of thought, and then like a third one that's kind of both the odd one out, because it's
Kind of
less
the black sheep.
yeah, kind of the odd one out, and also kind of like the one that everybody actually defaults to, right? So it's like utilitarianism, deontology, and virtue ethics, right? Where utilitarianism is like, well, or not utilitarianism, consequentialism. Utilitarianism is a sub thing in consequentialism. Consequentialism is like, we're concerned with the consequences, right? So it's like, you know, the best thing to do is just the thing that has the best consequences. Then
the least harm, that kind of thing.
Yeah. And however you want to cash that out, right? So like utilitarianism is like do the most good for the most people, but like there
like
are
the trolley problem being example.
Yeah, there are other, that's like a consequentialist thought experiment. Well, I mean, no, I wouldn't say it's a consequentialist thought. It's a thought experiment that evokes, as stated, consequentialist intuitions, right? But then, you know, then there's like deontology, which is like you should have like a code, right? Like you should follow the rules, right? Like you just like the right thing to do is just whatever, like you set yourself a set of rules, and this will like as long as you follow the rules, like you're doing good, right? And then there's like virtue ethics, which is a lot fuzzier, but it's sort of like you should figure out like how to embody the best. So like, you know, if generosity is a virtue, right, you should seek to do the thing that best embodies generosity, right? And you would have like a collection of virtues that you live your life by, and this is like so these are like the top level summaries, right? And it's you know, it's good that you brought up the trolley problem, right? Because like so the trolley problem, as stated, like we'll bring up consequentialism. Most people in the trolley problem will like flick the lever, right? Because it's like, well, that's
kill less people,
you know, doing the most. But there's like a variant of the trolley problem, which is the fat man, right? Where it's like, would you push a fat person off a bridge
just for fun
to save the 5 people?
Oh,
right? And a lot of people answer differently to this question.
Like, are they pushing him off because he's fat?
Well, he'll land in front of the trolley and he'll stop it, right?
Oh. How big is this guy? Is he like Enoch from Off? Jesus.
I don't know. It's just, I mean, maybe another one is like, would you, let's say you have like 5 patients in a hospital who all need a different organ, right? And then a healthy hiker kind of walks in, and like, as a doctor, do you kill the hiker to save the 5 patients?
No, you can't do that. I'm sure there's
well,
people
yeah.
like,
But that's, then it's sort of like, as stated, right, these are like similar situations, right? But you have very different intuitions about that, right? And like, you know, a meta-ethicist would say, well, like there are consequentialist or maybe naive consequentialist intuitions, and deontological intuition. So like the deontological intuition here is like, don't kill random people who come to you for medical help, right? Like, even if you think it'll save more lives, right? So it's
get the doomed people and get the one you like the least and use his organs for everyone else, and that's how we solve it.
Right. So like there's a lot of interest in this field, right? And maybe the way I'm explaining it now, just rambling off the cuff, it might sound a bit dry, but like
it's probably the funniest way to explain it.
Yeah. I think like inserting those kinds of, like, I'm not going to put like very obvious trolley problems in the story, but just like it goes a lot further in many different directions, right? And it has, it all sounds very abstract, but it like has practical consequences, right? Because for example, like in my circles, there's a lot of debate as to, if we're going to do charitable spending, where should the charitable spending go, right? And one debate would be between, well, do we help? Do we put more effort into saving human lives now versus, for example, animal lives? Or because, not necessarily that we weigh animals more than humans, but a lot more animals are suffering, and it would be a lot cheaper to save many, many more animals, right? And even within that, there's like sub debates on like, well, do we all animals and stuff, or do we also care about shrimp, for example, right? Because like, many millions of shrimp suffer many deaths.
They're
right?
gross. They're bugs.
They're all being frozen to death, and that kind of stuff. I should not get into that because that's like super inside baseball. But
okay, so within Diorama Break, you'll have to choose between saving 1 million shrimp or 1 human.
Well, I'm not going to do any shrimp stuff. I should not have brought the shrimp. I'm getting way off track here. Right, but so yeah, like, saving humans versus animal, or like humans that like are near you versus humans that like live in a foreign country. Right, like that's a pretty salient debate even in the wider political space. Right? Absolutely.
There's a lot of people, whereas you can't see the people, you never met the people, so they don't matter. They're not people. They no longer hold value to you.
Yeah, it's maybe a way of thinking about it.
Yeah.
But so a universalist might argue, well, like they're just all humans have value. Like if someone is dying in front of you, well, you should be willing to like suffer some amount of inconvenience to save them, right? And like if someone is dying from across the world because they don't have access to a cheap vaccine, right? Well, it would be just as inconvenient, just as like slightly inconvenient for you to provide that. So what is the major difference there, right? So it's that kind of stuff that I think a lot about, and I talk to my friends a lot about, and I want to include in some form or another. Now, it maybe won't be like very in your face, right? So like I'm giving like simple examples and like common examples just to kind of illustrate what I'm talking about. But I think the advantage of a whole story and a whole adventure and art as such is that you can explore these sorts of topics in more nuanced, more complex ways. More like you can like stew in it. Also, in a 40-hour RPG, you can really go over things and present situations and have the player like be in them, in the experience for longer than you could in just like our like 2-hour conversation, right?
Yeah, a bit more than just pointing at them and saying, do you want to do the good thing or do you want to do the evil thing?
Well, yeah, so that's I like a lot of games, like they do like,
so that
the good run or the evil run, like the abject evil, and it's like I don't really want to have like a run where you just do the abjectly evil thing. I want it to be like, okay, I'm giving you the choice, and like the choice is actually interesting. It's like a morally interesting choice, right? Where it's not obvious, like as much as possible. Like it shouldn't be super duper obvious to you which is the right choice. Or it's like super obvious, but like half the people think one choice is obvious and half the people think the other choice is obvious, right? That kind of thing is where it's like actually on a societal level not obvious, let's say.
Yeah, something a bit better than like, oh, you see a basket of like baby dogs about to go in the wood chipper. Do you pull it out or just watch it happen?
Yeah, avoiding that kind of stuff. And this is not like too spoilery, but like an example of this is like you might come across a village where they have an immediate problem, right? And they ask you to go fix the problem, but in the big picture, this like actually doesn't really matter and won't help you like solve the world's big problems, right? So like you're just wasting time in a sense. So like from the perspective of like we're here to have like a really big impact on the whole world. Like this would just be a waste of time. But from the perspective of like, well, I'm the hero. I want to embody the hero thing, and like what a hero does is like helps the people in front of them, right? That would be like the correct choice would be to indeed help them.
Yes, this is the Video Dish exclusive. We'll have the village with the small problem that doesn't matter that you can do. You're hearing it here first, maybe.
No, you probably have.
But I guess the main thing is getting really into the not just the meta ethics, but the game as a whole. What do you want people to feel as they are playing the game? What would you like them to walk away from the game with? What sort of emotions or thoughts would you like to generate when people are playing this game outside of just this turn-based game is fun and I like it?
Well, so like a core idea with the game was like, okay, you have this direct connection to the protagonist, right? And this just creates an investment, right? And hopefully, if we succeed, I think we even with the demo we've succeeded to some extent in doing this, but like to create that investment. So like anything that the hero is going through, whether you're kind of in it too, right? And so like you don't like, to me, like the death of all emotion is like you see it as like your suspension of disbelief is gone and you just like see it as all fake and a game, and you're just like completely disconnected from it, right? And so like a lot of the decisions like beyond even just like being able to talk directly to the protagonist, a lot of the decision we take into the world building and the way we've written things is like there to like keep the player feeling like, okay, this is even if they realize it's not like this feels real, right? Like this feels like something I'm invested in. Like I care about the outcome, and I'm not just playing like a fake game thing, right? And then you can parlay that investment into like emotional impact, right? In any way you can think of. It could be, and maybe talking about this is gonna hurt it for some people, but that's why they come to these podcasts.
They want to know.
Yeah, they want to know. So here's the deep knowledge, right? So you can parlay this investment into if the character suffers some setback or some pain, well, like you feel it more, right? Like you feel like I feel like I'm suffering, or like my friend is suffering, right? Like if there's some great victory, like you more invested in that victory, right? Like you feel just like the same emotions you might feel if you experienced a real life victory, right? And going further, like the like one thing I wanted to do is write characters that like embody the things that I feel might be well, not missing, but like embody things that I like to see in people, right? Maybe not the main character, but or maybe the main character as well. Like there's things to like about Pro. Although like we got a lot of feedback during the beta of like I don't like his attitude, but I'm happy to see that like fans of the game, it's I don't know how split it is. I think it's maybe like 10% of people will like play the demo and be like, I hate it. I hate it. But I think for the most part, people kind of like get it, right? But I mean, beyond just Pro, like all the characters, like I want to write characters that like embody virtues that I think are interesting, or like I'd want to see more in people in a way that like I really don't want to be preachy ever, right? That's like super important for me to avoid, right? Like I really, and so I think this is like a way to just be like, look at this cool guy, isn't he cool? Don't you want to be like that? Right? And cool is like a stand-in for like anything you can think of, right?
Yeah,
and that's
like when you're a kid, the first time you see Vegeta or something.
Like the funny example is like people watching like a Ryan Gosling movie.
Oh yeah, Drive.
Literally me. I'm gonna be
exactly.
That guy. Right. But and I think a lot of great stories kind of have this, and I think a lot of great stories almost like have this by accident, where like they write a character that they want people to like intentionally think is horrible, and then a bunch of people read that character and they're like, wow, that character's so cool.
Finally, I'm being represented.
Yeah, and that's not to say we're not going to have characters that like embody negative virtues, right? But I think I don't want to write characters that are just like pure cartoonish evil either. Right. So like everybody you meet is gonna have their own motivations. They're like understandable motivations. Right. And so that's so to answer the question, like that's something you can take away. I hope people will be able to take away from the game. It is both seeing these characters as examples and also because you can interact with them, right? Like being able to have that experience of like interacting with people like this or people in general in that sort of like safer play space, because that's it goes a little bit back to like the simulation-y aspects of games, right? But games can like capture a little microcosm of reality, right? And the sort of microcosm I'm talking about here is like having friends, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, it's true. There's a big thing. People love that, or they need it, honestly, to really relate to things. People wouldn't like Undertale, for example, half as much if they didn't feel that friendship and that attachment to the characters. They wouldn't be finding the guy who did the first genocide run and figuring out where he lives to kill him if they didn't feel these attachments.
Yeah. So, I want the characters to be, sympathetic or to be inspiring or to be, paragons of something or other. And, in many different ways. Right. And I won't get like too into it because that's going to be spoilers. Right. But like I want a diversity of views. I want a diversity of attitudes, opinions, characters, like virtues. The richness.
Yes. So at the end of the day, when you're done playing Diorama Break, the richness will inspire you. You will want to become, if not a better person, then at least as close to whoever your favorite character ended up being. If that ends up being
hopefully
the absolute representative of the most negative, heinous virtues and qualities, then that's on you. But you will feel that.
Yeah. And I mean, this like sounds all very high-minded, right? But to me, it's just like I hope everything. I hope everyone can like strive to make works like this, right? Where like they have ideals and they have thoughts on the truth, right? And they put that into their work, and their work then can reveal this to the world. I think there's not enough of that attitude of really caring about depicting truth in that way. I mean, certainly there's a lot of like it's such a fine line, right? Because like you never want to preach, you never want to come off as like forcing your ideas on someone. So I guess it's a matter of doing it tastefully, right? I that's sort of what I want to see more of.
Right. Yeah.
And hopefully we'll get there. It'll really be up to the fans to judge, right? So, I might be talking completely out of my ass.
No, I think that's very, very necessary to make characters that actually have any substance, is to put those pieces of yourself and those thoughts and those feelings you have into them. I think that's absolutely a requirement. And I'm looking forward to seeing what exactly happens with the next developments of Diorama Break. And speaking of, what exactly is next? Is it just working on the Kickstarter?
Yeah, so I am like, oh my God, I'm so swamped. Like the Kickstarter has been monopolizing all of my time, like all of it, just nonstop. It's really, really nonstop. I got to do like so many emails and so many other things. So that's like definitely going to 100% of my attention is on that right now. Once I'm done, I have been working like nonstop for the past 3 years.
So I'm finally going to play some games.
I'm going to take like 2 weeks off or something.
2 weeks.
But then I'm going to be on top of things. So like our first stretch goal, for example, is demo mod support. And we're almost certainly going to hit that, right? And that's going to be so a little bit of work on my end, but I hope to be able to do that pretty soon after the Kickstarter. Well, we'll have most of the demo open source on GitHub, and with a little bit of extra stuff on top to make it easy to do fan translations if people want. I don't know if we're going to see that. Maybe we're not big enough, but it's not too hard to do. So it's something I want to give people the opportunity to do. And then also just like, if anyone feels comfortable enough wrangling my code base, they can just do whatever interesting stuff they want to do with the demo. You can make Pro say whatever you want.
Yeah, like a whole total conversion mod. Go crazy.
Yeah.
Do you have any games that you've been longing to play that you've been pretty much totally locked in. Haven't been able to do anything for the last couple of years.
So Pokemon Champions just came out.
You're on the battling side?
And yeah. So like I listed Pokemon Showdown as one of my favorite games on the Kickstarter page, right? And I've been playing a little bit on the Showdown ladder, but like I really want to give Champions a proper shot. I got Kirby Air Riders for Christmas, and I played like one afternoon of it, and then I was too busy to play more. And like, it's just, yeah. I mean, obviously everybody has their giant backlog. Kind of want to play Bonanza.
Yeah, so do I. I've had it since it came out, but I have not played it at all.
Yeah. There's what else do I want to play? There was like I guess the new Fire Emblem is coming out soon. I wonder if that'll be good.
I don't have high hopes, honestly. Did you play Engage?
We'll see. So Engage, the gameplay I thought was fantastic, right?
The story from the very beginning, I was turned off completely.
Yeah. I completely agree. I mean, it was funny. Like it feels like half of it was phoned in, half of it was like locked in.
Just so but you guys like the marriage mechanics, right? Let's make the whole game.
But like overall, just because the gameplay was solid, that's what I was thinking of. Mugenics. I want to play Mugenics.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, everyone says it's like the best thing ever. Still haven't picked that one up yet either. Maybe we'll get Edmund on sometime. I'm sure he'd love to.
Oh, that would be sick.
Yeah.
Nice. That reminds me, I'm excited to see what thumbnail you come up with this, because I see all your thumbnails.
Yeah, they're definitely unique. I make them all myself, homegrown.
Oh, it'll be fun.
Yeah. Okay, so pretty decent amount of stuff. A couple hundreds of hours with those games alone. Aside of that, for any potential game developers out there, is there anything you would like to say? Any words of wisdom or things to look out for, or things you picked up in your time that you want to impart?
Yeah, let's see. I thought about this. This was like in your outline, so I thought about this a little bit before coming on. Do you know what the efficient market hypothesis is?
No idea.
So there's this idea that like if you see a $20 bill on the ground, right, in New York, like Central Station, right, it's probably fake because someone would have picked it up already, right?
Okay.
And this is sort of the idea, this like the kind of core idea of this, the efficient market hypothesis, is that like in a market, right, if you have like some idea for how to make money, right, some opportunity, like probably someone has thought of it already, right? And so that's like a kind of rule of thumb, but it's not true. It's like obviously not true in all cases, right? So like if you find a $20 bill on like some side street, well, it's probably real. Someone just dropped it because there's like fewer people there. So whenever you have an idea for something, this has been like, it's surprising how much this comes up because it applies in so many cases of like, if you want to be like original or interesting and you're like taking of like an outside view of your idea, right? You really have to think about the efficient market hypothesis. You have to think, okay, would people have tried this already? Would people have thought of this already? And if not, why? Right. And if you want to come up with an interesting idea, right, think about what is my comparative advantage? What do I know that no one else knows, right? No one else would have thought of already. And it feels like pithy to say that, but like it's actually like, you know, and not necessarily like everyone in the world, but just like, you know, if I'm making a JRPG, what do all the JRPG developers, what have they not thought of, right? Or if you're, you know, making any other sort of thing, be it a game, like think about what context you're in, right? And think about, you know, what you know that everybody else in that context does not know, or very few people at least, right? And you can, you know, if you can't think of it, you can like steal ideas from elsewhere, right? So it's like, well, you know, I know about this thing, right, that I don't think most people in this space, like what is a market, right? Like a market is just people buying and selling stuff, right? It's people who want things and people who are providing things, and maybe they're using money, or maybe, you know, it's like we could talk about the currency being, you know, artistic fulfillment, right? So like you're making art and people are consuming that art, and like what you're offering them is like like satisfaction, fulfillment in some sense, and what you know, that's what they're looking for, right? And so like, you know, if you have an idea that everybody else in that space has already had, right? Like, you better be like either like you kind of have to be like the best person who has ever executed on that idea, or people are not going to have a reason to like get satisfaction out of what you're doing, right? But like if you have an idea that like no one's ever done before, you have a lot more room for error, right? Because the novelty is going to carry you. And so that's like many different facets to this idea. That's sort of my words of wisdom.
Yes.
Very general words of wisdom. But it's surprising, like in creative spaces, like anytime you're exercising creativity in any way, like this comes up.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, you got to either create something completely brand new, in which case you can be a little sloppy with it, or if it's something that's been done before, you better be the best in the world, or else no one cares.
Yeah. I guess it's if I had to boil it down, it would be like, think about when you're making something, think about the context you're going to be releasing it in, both your audience and your competitors. Right? Competitors is the wrong word. The other people making the same things.
Nah, competitors, right? They're your enemies, if anything.
Yeah. Always think about your friends and your enemies.
Yeah. Yes, keep them close.
Right.
All right.
There's no in between.
And so just about done. The only thing left is the community Q&A. We got a couple of questions from our beloved.
I saw you had a question from Lou, who I know actually.
Oh, Lou? Yeah, he's great.
Yeah, we met at PAX East.
We play Left 4 Dead Versus together. If you have a copy, feel free to jump in.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Let's see. So from Noldrum, we have we had the first question we kind of answered earlier. If there's any games that inspire the hero talks to the players concept. But the second question is, I know they don't need to eat the same way we do, but does Pro have a favorite food?
I had not thought of this. I suppose he would enjoy his mother's vegetables.
Okay. A nice radish, perhaps.
Yeah, my grandmother in Italy has a vegetable garden, right? And it's so good to eat stuff from there because it's just completely fresh. It's amazing. So yes, that's what he likes.
Okay, he likes the Italian vegetable garden.
Yeah,
it's a nice ripe tomato. Yeah. All right, and from Lulu Pa, since you are a experienced developer, have there been any unexpected or interesting challenges making an RPG versus what you've worked on before?
Well, so I talked about this a bit when I was comparing like making the Anton Blast demo versus this demo. Like the big thing is just there's so much more content in a JRPG than a platformer. It's insane, right? Because you got to do all the writing and all the cutscenes, right? And then also, like I said, with the combat, like we don't have an established playbook, so there's a lot more trial and error that we got to do, right? Which, even now, like I think once the Kickstarter is done, I talked a bit about the demo mod support, but like I think after that, I'm just going to spend at least a few weeks kind of messing around with the combat system some more, just because I think we're in a pretty good place now, but like we got a lot of feedback, and it's just still too hard in some places. And we just we're so focused on getting for this demo like the story right and all the environments in and all the art looking nice. That I didn't feel like I had enough time to like really QA the combat as much as I would have wanted to.
I do like the difficulty, but that's just me. I like when things.
Yeah, I mean, some people
hard.
Definitely like the difficulty, and that's completely fine and good. But it's just like we can have harder stuff later on, and if it's like really hard, have it be optional. But like I just don't want. I want to avoid it if possible. People just like bouncing off.
People getting filtered by the first area.
But it's funny because like people, report like, oh, I had a ton of issue with like the captain, like the tutorial fight, right? It was like really, really hard. And then I replayed the demo and I like breezed past it super easy, right? So it really is like a learning curve thing where like right now it's just like, because we're so unorthodox, we have this like pretty steep learning curve, and we just have to find a way to smooth it out just enough so that people don't bounce off without like, trivializing the combat or, because like obviously you could just make the fight super easy, but then if people don't learn the combat, at some point they do have to figure out how it works, right? If people can just like breeze through it without thinking, then like they'll never get to access the depth.
Yeah, can't compromise.
They'll just bounce off at some other point. So like, yeah, there's got to be a way where we got to tone down the frustration somehow.
Okay, and then also from Lulupa. What has been one of your favorite things that has been different this time around? I assume compared to Anton Blast or other previous
Compared to
projects.
Anton Blast, well, I mean, so like on Anton Blast, I was, of course, less involved creatively because I was more focused on just the programming side of things. Right. So like Anton Blast was really like Tony's brainchild and like his aesthetic. And not to say, I part of why I loved working on Anton Blast is because like everybody on it like had such a clear idea of what they wanted to do and the aesthetic and like it's just like it's a very opinionated aesthetic. I like it's not like exactly the kind of thing I like, but it's like pretty damn close. Anton Blast is really cool.
Yeah.
Right. Like, and I was already, Tony's going to hate me for saying this, but like even before Anton Ball, like, I was already a fan of Pizza Tower.
Yeah. We got a clip.
Just for similar reasons, right? Because it's just like, wow, I'm seeing something that's like, super creative, not like anything else, very visually engaging, right? Like, I'm a big anime fan, and like part of being a big anime fan is I love Sakuga. I love interesting animation.
You just like stuff that looks good, just a part of it.
Yeah. So I'm getting a bit far afield here, but so to go back to the original question, so like I was less involved with Anton Blast creatively, like sort of for those reasons. Of course, the interesting thing this time around is just like being able, like just being at the helm, right? Making so many decisions for the project and just like having to develop opinions on like 100 different things so that I can make a decision, right? So like, I talked to my illustrator. It's like, hey, we gotta design this character, right? And like my illustrator will come back to me with like, here's 12 different variants, right, of her costume, essentially, right? Like, which do you like best? And it's like, okay, I had to sit down for a few hours and really think about, okay, like which one am I picking here and why? And, I haven't thought very much about fashion before.
You gotta think,
right?
yeah.
But I have to think about fashion. Like, how is this going to look? How is this going to come off in the game? How does this like tie into like the wider goals that we're going for with this character? Right. And it's sort of like that for every character design that we do. So I have to come up with opinion on character design. I said before, like I came up with I had to really refine my opinions on like what I like about pixel art. Like, so like I had, a vague idea of like, well, I like pixel art, but there's like some pixel art that I don't really like. And I'm not sure why, but I had to, for this project, like sit down and actually write out my thoughts and really refine my thinking on like, okay, this is the sort of pixel art I like and why, and like really specific reasons for why I like this kind of pixel art. That and having a project like that to like really force me into I guess refining my taste in this way, I think has been like super gratifying.
Yeah, just having that seen the director share, you really come to a better understanding.
And because I was less involved in that kind of stuff on Anton Blast, I didn't really have any impetus to do so.
Do you prefer that, having the greater responsibility as well?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's always been like I said, it's always been my goal.
Yeah. Well, fantastic.
Like I'm a creative through and through. And I guess another thing then on the technical side, so like even though on Anton Blast I was technical, so I was working on Game Maker with Game Maker on Anton Blast, right? And that I still like Game Maker and I recommend it to beginners a lot, but Anton Blast kind of grew into a project where especially like switch porting, doing that with GML, Game Maker language, which is like a JavaScript kind of like not like automatic memory management, sort of like you don't really know what's going on under the hood very, very well. That got like really frustrating. And going into this project and making the engine and like really learning low level programming and actually like becoming a much better programmer has been fantastic. And I don't know where, like I've written about this, of course, a few times on my blog, but I picked up Odin, which is like one of these new C-like languages, right? It's meant to be like C, but with modern design decisions made, right? So like C is a very old language and it's still very pure in a sense, but like a lot of design decisions made on C were like decisions that made sense 40 years ago and are maybe a bit cumbersome nowadays, right? So like we've seen a lot of languages pop up that are like, well, we're going to be like C, but for modern hardware and who care about the problems that modern developers are, right?
Yeah,
And Odin is one of these languages. I had a great time with Odin. I love Odin. I feel like I learned like 10 years of C, low level C kind of knowledge in just like 6 months of learning Odin.
Okay. So would you also kind of, going back to the aspiring game developer thing, would you say that someone who wants to create a game should also pursue Odin?
So it depends. If you're the kind of person who's like, yeah, I really want to get technical with it, and like properly learn to be a good programmer, I think there's a lot of ways you can use a low-level language like Odin that's still fairly approachable as a jumping off point, right? So like Raylib comes up very often, and what Raylib is. So like you have Odin, which is the language, and then you can kind of like raw dog it, where you like write your engine all yourself, where you're literally just like making calls to every single different possible like operating system that you might want to target, and just like working with the internals, and it's pretty rough, but there's a lot of frameworks that will handle stuff like making a window, putting stuff on screen, like just like drawing a texture, for example, right? For you that can make starting game development a lot easier, and probably the most approachable but still pretty powerful one of these is Raylib. Now, personally, I use SDL. When I started making the engine, it was between Raylib and SDL. I picked SDL2 because they had wider console support. Mm-hmm. But if you're just like starting out and learning, like strongly recommend Raylib, and like a lot of people strongly recommend Raylib. And that's something where like you can get a moving character on screen with just like a few hundred lines of code. And there's like a ton of like tutorials. It's really great. Now, if you're kind of out, if you're kind of like, you don't know necessarily, or you're sure you don't want to like really get into the programming side of things, there's really no shame in like sticking with a third-party engine. And I still recommend Game Maker a lot for beginners, because the thing about something like Unity or Unreal is that it comes with a lot of stuff, kind of just like, because it's 3D as well, right? It's difficult to really be approachable to beginners and not provide them with like a bunch of just stuff that's just been done for them, right? So like Unity and Unreal especially just like come with like a bunch of stuff that's just like done out of the box for you, right? And I think this kind of hurts diversity in amateur games. I think it also like prevents you from like really learning. It not prevents you, but like it makes it harder to like really learn like foundational stuff in terms of just like, like if you have like character controller component and you stick it on your character and now your character just like moves around with WASD, you didn't really do anything, right? You don't
drag
really,
and drop.
You never wrote any gameplay code. Like you don't really like you didn't get that like lower level growth. Whereas in something like Game Maker, right, I think now they're like working on it more and more and they're adding more stuff, but like still for the most part, like you still have to write all your own gameplay code. Right. Like you write all your own collision code, you write all your own movement code, right? And like the low level stuff is of course taken care of you, right? So you're not thinking about like sticking it like texture. Like one thing I had to build for the engine is like a sprite packer. Like that's like a technical back end thing, right? But like in Game Maker, you drag an image in, it makes a sprite for you, and then you type sprite draw, and it'll draw the sprite. And that's I think great if you're starting out. You just feel like we want to make something, right? But you're still learning gameplay code, right? And you still, I think, compared to something like Unity, learn about the internals of how an engine works. So that I would not recommend anyone just starting out make an engine like for like a long-term thing. Like you can make simple games, and like maybe you'll be limited in what you can do commercially or how many platforms you can go to, or like the scope of the game, because like past a certain scope, like you won't hit the performance you need. But you can make simple games at a low level language, but you can't really make an engine if you've never, unless you do it like the really hard way and you do a lot of reading, right? It's a lot easier to do so after you've already worked with a third party engine and you know what it is that you're making, right?
Yeah.
So that's
go through the progression.
Yeah, that was like the big the big advantage of having like making my own engine, having all this experience with GameMaker is that I knew what I wanted to make, right? Like I knew the features I needed. I knew roughly how GameMaker was doing things under the hood as well, just from having all that experience working with GameMaker, right? I think even if you're like, well, I want to make my own engine at some point, it's good to start with a third-party engine so that you get a grasp of like all these little things. For beginners, like if you want to start out, that's what I would recommend. Now, if you're coming into it, like you're already like familiar with low-level stuff, and you loathe the idea of using a language like GameMaker doesn't use JavaScript, but the language is very similar to JavaScript, right? You load the idea of using such a language, and then like more power to you. Just like pick up Raylib and make a game, right? And you'll probably already understand enough technical stuff that you kind of like when you read about how engines do things, you'll be like, yeah, okay, that makes sense, right? Even if you haven't actually used a game engine, but one thing I taught a class on game engine development, right? And I had a lot of people who were like this, right? And it was surprising. They were like very talented at like low level programming stuff, right? But it was surprising how much they were just like unaware of like, this is how engines typically work, right? So it might still be worth it, even if you're that kind of person, to like pick up an engine for a bit and poke around with it and try different things.
See the ins and outs.
Make a little project with it. And really, everybody says this all the time, and they're absolutely right. You should make small projects and scrap them. Just like really like make and do game jams when you're starting out, like make something in a weekend, right? Because then like you'll know you can make games, but you won't be saddled with like a complete amateur's code base for like a 1 year project, right?
Right, way down the line. All right. Well, I think with that we've come to just about the end of the interview.
Yeah.
So wonderful time, I would say, and for anyone listening. The Kickstarter, I believe, will be complete by the time this is done. So make sure you go to Steam. You want to wish list Diorama Break.
You want to? Are you sure? When is this coming out?
Next Thursday.
No. We've got like 22 days left. So
shit. Then yeah. And second time.
We're ending May 29th.
Cut that out. So for those of you still listening, the Kickstarter is still going. So pull out that wallet, pull out that big piece of leather you keep in your back pocket, and slap your credit card onto the computer. Pump in some money. Maybe you can put your dog into the game or something. Why not, if that hasn't been taken already? I would also strongly recommend playing the demo if you haven't yet. I can guarantee you it is something that if you listen to the show regularly, you will be interested and, dare I say, even excited by as you play it. It'll be worth your time. And if it isn't in the end, yes, it was. And so aside of that, Massimo, where can the listeners and viewers find you and the game?
Yeah, so probably the best place to follow both me and the game is my blog. So that would be like our like email newsletter. That's at blog.massimogautier.com. I'm also personally I'm on X as well. I think X and Blue Sky, and I'm trying to think of, I guess, you could subscribe to me on YouTube, and I will post maybe like trailers there.
You just yearly video essay.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. Like I took down a lot of the like older videos for like tax reasons that I'm not going to get into. But one of the I decided to keep up like an old video essay I did on Zero Ranger in like 2019. So you can see me from like 7 years ago.
Yeah, check it out if you want to see the past Massimo. Subscribe, watch it. I think also does the YouTube also contribute to the little Kickstarter point system you got going on?
The point system?
Yeah, which like the set amount of wish lists, follows.
Oh yes, yes, we have community goals.
The community goal system, yeah.
No, I do not have YouTube stuff on the community goals. The community goals is mainly like the really important metrics. So it's like Steam, the Steam, the Kickstarter backers, and email subscribers, and our Discord too. So if you wanna help the game, and you see that on our page, like share it around, follow, wishlist, do all that. Thank you very much. Also, I'm not allowed to offer anything for this, which is why it's not part of our community goals. But actually, the most important thing you could probably do on Steam is leave a review, right? So if you leave a review, thank you.
Yes, always do that. Make sure that you click on the positive one. Click on the thumb that's pointing up, not down, unless you're really unless you really, know what you're doing.
Yes. Yes. If you hate the game, just give us
DM him
money.
privately instead.
Yeah. Just like if you hate the game, just back the Kickstarter and don't say anything anywhere.
Yeah. Perfect. There you go. So now you know what to do. You know where to go. And Massimo, thank you very much for coming on. And
Thanks for having me. This is good.
Your whole gaming story is really, really exciting stuff. Yeah. And as always, we have been Video Ditch. Thank you all for listening. And keep on gaming in the free world.